got to say the Dette was probably one of the most complex scripts that I had ever gotten on any television show. It was really great. I mean, I was astounded, frankly, that they allowed us to do what we did on that scale.
My favorite episodes, I wouldn't say by far, I love so many of the episodes, but certainly my favorite episodes is the Dette. It's parts 1 and 2. I just think I love the themes, I love the way it was executed, I love the direction, and it was just so exciting, every bit of it.
Yeah, the Dettes. Those are perhaps my 2 favorite episodes of all time of Xena, the Dette 1 and 2. Probably the ones that I'm most proud of as well. We said the only way we could do this right is if we did it in epic scope. And I think we did some of our most lyrical work in it, and some of our greatest production design and costume design and stunts. It all just came together on those shows.
Somehow the Dette seemed like a great tribute to some of Xena's Far Eastern origins.
The biggest challenge with the Dette was probably that we were undertaking essentially a short feature film inside the framework of, you know, the TV show. You know, it was a great story, and it was, you know, fantastically art directed and well directed, well played. So
I liked the Dette. It was a really interesting idea in its own way, but the Dette, I feel, you know, it had a look to it.
The Dette in particular, you know, lent itself because of the scope and magnitude of the sets they were building, the location, the plains of Namatia, really allowed me to open this thing up and make it big.
When they would read in scripts, wait a second, you're going to have a mother poison her child. Wait a second, you're going to have the hero put heads on pikes. Is this the way to go? And we would always say, look, it hasn't been done on TV before, but that doesn't mean that under this circumstance, in this fantasy genre, it can't be done. And we had to see her do that, so we understood what kind of character she was at the time, so we understood how she's going to grow into the character she is now.
The scene where Boreas and Xena on horseback making love, I think, was a collaboration. I definitely wanted her to be thrown off by Boreas. You know, the cruelty to which, you know, Xena's character was being treated, for her arc into understanding compassion from Lao Ma later in the story, it really, it makes sense.
And if we kill them all, who's left to be terrified?
Martin did a wonderful job with Boreas. An interesting little story, I was down in New Zealand when he was being fitted for his costume, and he was asking me, who is Boreas, where does he come from? And I suggested that he was a Hun, because Rob and I had talked about that. And Martin said, well, you know, I'm of Hungarian descent. And I said, well, why don't you try a Hungarian accent?
You know, Boreas, I think, was the one that got away. In a way, he was the one person who really loved her when she was so unlovable. And she just used him, abused him. I think he saw her potential. But in the end, she was far more of a warlord than he was. I mean, she was the real deal.
In the hot tub scene between Lao Ma and Xena, the scene was really, to me, it was about Lao Ma. This was part of Xena's lesson, to find, you know, to believe in humanity, to believe in compassion, to believe in love. And I think that's really what the scene was all about.
It's really interesting. I recall that scene vividly because it was, the tank was part of the set. But then we had a bit of a problem because the tub that they were in had been stained or creosoted or something like that, and the creosote started to come out of the wood with the warm water, which changed everything, and it made it incredibly difficult for the actors because it was getting into their eyes. It was really sort of pungent and quite hard on them because it became a crisis panic, really.
Obviously, the kiss was very sensual, you know, underwater, between two women, but once again, for all practical purposes, Lao Ma had to pump air into Xena's lungs or she would have drowned. So.
Well, in the cage, that was modelled on the scene in The Deer Hunter when in the North Vietnamese have the captured GIs in a sort of a flooded cage arrangement that was incredibly sort of, you know, spine-chilling, really.
The end of part one has to be incredibly dramatic and dynamic. And Rob had this visual, as Rob has these brilliant visuals, of Xena going to kill Ming Tian and Gabrielle betraying Xena to the guards to keep her from killing Ming Tian. And it was such a spectacularly good idea, and it was just the way we were going to structure it. As soon as Rob pitched it to me, I knew that's what's going to be the structure of this.
So there's the debt, right? And so Gabrielle thinks that she's trying to save Xena, right, from being a murderer, when if you look at her history, Gabrielle's still trying to change her, you know? Yeah. Don't kill this one person because you'll never go back, right?
Sorry, Xena, I couldn't let you do this.
The reason Gabrielle did that, and I think it was very much within the character of Gabrielle, is she knew that Xena was on a mission to go back to embrace that dark side, to do something that Gabrielle couldn't live with.
One of the other observations about the debt is that she had other motivations when she went to Chen to stop Xena from being the murderer. She went there because she was jealous, because she was upset that there might be another person in Xena's life that meant more than Gabrielle did.
Oh, jealous.
Why
that she would
was
deceive
Gabrielle
herself.
jealous? I don't remember.
Because you had a relationship with Lao Ma, you're going to China to help Lao Ma, and Gabrielle, I guess, felt neglected and brushed off. You had lied to her in order to go to China, so Gabrielle basically decided to do whatever she could to keep you.
Right.
But to punish you, you know.
At the same time. Yeah, that's right.
Bad, Gabrielle.
I want to see Xena.
That would be impossible.
One of the things that made Xena interesting was that she was a character with a past, and she carried that past in everything she did. And the debts were a great way of showing some of the defining moments that had affected Xena.
We were dealing with Xena's past, so you know, we come upon the television show, we've seen that she's trying to start making amends for her past sins.
It was a double episode. It was 2 hours of television, and they really put the money into the production design on that one. I mean, when we walked on some of the sound stages over there, which are basically warehouses, and I saw some of the sets that they were building for this particular episode and what they were designing, the production value really gave it an epic feel.
They wanted it to be epic. It wasn't, you know, it was to be an epic thing. So it was challenging from that point of view, that the script determined that we were going to be at various locations. We were going to be doing more than you would normally do when you're shooting a TV show. You have to be much more pragmatic, you know.
So the idea that Xena was going to Mongolia, say, or our version of Mongolia, that was a really nice thing to play with.
Lucy and Renee were terrific, and once again, I think what their relationship went through in those two and then culminating in the Bittersweet was probably the most extreme arc we had throughout the entire journey of Xena.
Well, the prison water scene was a really brilliant design by Rob Gillies. To be thrown in a prison, in a dungeon, is one thing, but then to be thrown in a watery dungeon with Lucy's pillory around her neck, which was in fact, you know, taken from, that was historically accurate.
I'd seen in a book of early photographs from China, if you were a criminal, your sentence was to wear this for maybe a month or a year, And I think what the purpose of it also was that you couldn't feed yourself. And I can remember when we actually did the set and flooded it, it wasn't a nice place to be in.
Say it!
I can't tell you how many times Gabrielle slapped Xena.
Stop. No, you poor thing, you had that heavy brace around you.
Oh,
and you were
yeah,
on your knees,
quite a
just to
heavy thing.
make it worse. Oh, yeah, but come on.
Oh, I thought that was cool.
Yeah?
Cool.
It's a great choice.
To be
but
forced to do something that is so
Right.
anti everything that you or your character
Yeah,
believes
that's true,
in.
actually.
It's just, oh, it's
I'm
great,
not
riveting.
In the Dette particularly, there's a very big emotional moment for Gabrielle with Xena, when Xena's in the pillory in the prison, in the watery prison in the Dette. It was very important for me to get that emotional beat just right. And I told Renee, I said, hold every emotion, hold everything you've got in your soul and your heart and this begging for forgiveness, hold it for this one line. Gabrielle looks at Xena and Xena looks at her, and that's it. Then the dam broke. And I said, that's the moment, right there.
Scratch my nose, will you? Come on.
Key thing, the thing I loved writing most was the Lao Ma character, how we were able to discover from studying the scrolls, Gabrielle's scrolls, that it was actually Lao Ma who wrote the Tao Te Ching and not her husband, Lao Tzu. And so to explore that was probably the most fun I had in the whole time in doing Xena. I love those 2 China episodes, by the way.
Jacqueline Kim was terrific as Lao Ma. Very, very strong, powerful, good actor who also was very sublime. And one of the things that I was always struck by is that she was able to deliver her lines with effortlessness and still be a very commanding presence on screen.
The scene where Lao Ma wraps Xena in a piece of cloth and then unravels her and spins her like a top and causes her to float in the air. One thing that I saw that I think really added to the sensuality of the piece and the beauty of it was, once I knew that they were going to be off the ground, I talked to Nyla Dixon, the costumer, and I said, gosh, you know, I just see a lot of flowing material in slow motion. And that's kind of what I told to Nyla, mentioned to her, and boy, she designed these beautiful costumes that if you stood on the ground with them, there would be, you know, trains of material all over the place, but once we lifted them up on wire and shot them in slow motion and hit them with big fans, then the material just flowed all around them and just added that much more sensuality and beauty to the scene. It was really great.
Xena was at a point in her life that she needed something desperately, and just like people find God or find, you know, any other kind of spiritual awakening, I think that Lao Ma played that role for Xena at that point in her life. So I think it was probably the seminal person that she would meet in her life prior to meeting Gabrielle.
I think Xena kind of likes those Asian girls, don't you? I think she was very intrigued by Lao Ma, who was so graceful, and I think everything that Xena wasn't.
You know, once again, Lucy was so in tune with what was happening in these stories. She was so well prepared that, you know, even in that temple fight scene, she grasped it. I mean, she knew. And I think that was sort of like the feeling that we all thought should happen, but Lucy she really knew what was going on with this character at that point. The ambiguity of Ming Tian's death at the end, whether or not the audience thinks he's dead or not, Gabrielle thinks he's dead or not, well, Gabrielle never knew he was dead. She walked out of that room thinking that Xena had learned, you know, the lessons and played by the rules now that Lao Ma had set forth.
I love you, Xena. I love you too, Gabrielle.
Did I really hit you?
Oh, not really. Stunt hit. No. Wasn't like all those other times.
Off camera. By the coffee table. In the belly.
Yes.